Hey everybody, what is up? Jacob here with a special report for electricstringplayer.com. Last month we did a review of an amazing new box by Signal Wizard Systems called the VSound 2. And as I said in that report, this box is one of an amazing new generation of processors that uses DSP to transform the possibilities for amplified bowed string playing. Or I think as I put it then, this may be the first time that amplified string players have a chance to actually sound good on stage. Judging by your comments and emails, a lot of you were curious about how the VSound 2 compares to another box that we did a big review for earlier, the Tone Dexter by Audio Sprockets. I have to say right off the bat that these units are very different, not only in how they actually work, but also in the experience of using them. That said, we're all about giving the people what they want. So this video is for all of you guys out there. So let's start with price. Right off the bat, both of the units are $400. And because the units are so new, it's extremely difficult to find either of these used on eBay or reverb.com. They're also both pretty difficult to find in terms of distribution. If you're looking at the VSound, you need to order it from their site and have them ship it to you from England, or the electricviolinshop.com, shout out to Matt Bell and our friends over at EVS, are distributing it in the States. Whereas the Tone Dexter is almost exclusively available at this point from the Audio Sprockets website. And although these aren't giant companies, both of these boutique manufacturers really do a great job with customer service and getting back to you. Both James at Audio Sprockets and Patrick at Signal Wizard Systems were extremely responsive to my emails and any questions I had. And I've heard similar good stories from other owners of these products. For those of you that run pedal boards, the Tone Dexter obviously takes up way more space than the VSound and is considerably heavier as well. Another thing with the Tone Dexter is that it allows for universal power and even DC positive or negative from 9 to 15 volts, whereas the VSound will accept 5 to 9 volt DC. So in case of most power supplies you're probably running on your pedal board, you'll be in good shape with either box. If you're gigging a lot and traveling on planes and you're concerned about build quality, I would have to say the Tone Dexter is miles above the VSound here. As a small company, Signal Wizard Systems is still struggling a little bit with quality control and consistency. As a matter of fact, the one I'm showing you here had the screen pop off in transit, and the first VSound I received had a broken USB jack. Now, some of that might just be shipping from England, which is a lot more tricky than shipping from California to California, but there are definitely some quality control issues that you might experience with your VSound unit. Haven't heard anything about that with the Tone Dexter. Also, the Tone Dexter has hardcore rubberized knobs that feel extremely solid compared to the plastic volume knob on the VSound, and the jacks feel a lot better, as well as the switches on the Tone Dexter. The screen is also a lot bigger and nicer and is multifunctional. So even though both units force you to just look at numbers when it comes to which wave map or which IR you're on, which is a little bit frustrating, the Tone Dexter window is much bigger, brighter, and easier to see as it's on the surface of the unit, whereas the VSound screen is actually recessed and is much more difficult to see if you're looking at it from an angle. The screen on the Tone Dexter also doubles as a tuner, which the VSound does not have. In terms of ease of use, I would say both units do really well, but initially I'd have to give the VSound a slight edge here, as it's mostly designed to be complete plug and play with almost no options for the user on the front end, with the exception of volume and a single switchable boost. The Tone Dexter does give you a few more options on the front end, including an optional basic EQ, which is extremely helpful. The Tone Dexter's extra knobs and options can make it a little more confusing at first to someone who's a newbie. And the process of creating wave maps through training a microphone in the unit to sound like a pickup does have a small learning curve. But in the VSound, the impulse responses are preloaded and all you have to do is scroll through and find the one you want. The downside is that if you want to tweak the IRs in the VSound, you need to go into their software, which has a much, much higher learning curve than either of these boxes do as standalones. And of course, the unit doesn't give you the ability to create your own IRs. Now let's talk about the features of both of these units. In looking at the VSound versus the Tone Dexter, it's pretty easy to know which one was designed by an engineer and which one was designed by a guitar player. The Tone Dexter is loaded with a lot of the most valuable features that I think are essential for live performance, including a mute button which also activates the built-in tuner, both very nice features, and a selectable boost switch with up to 10 dB gain that you can select on the back of the unit. Like most analog preamp DIs, the Tone Dexter has both a DI output and a buffered amp output, which allows for all kinds of flexibility when performing and monitoring yourself live and in the studio. The Signal Wizard limits you to just a single mono input and a single mono output. The Tone Dexter also gives you some EQing options right on the box, including a bass and a treble control, as well as that all-important notch filter for taming frequencies that might be feeding back. The VSound gives you no EQing options on the box. Again, you have to go into the software for that and tweak that. So if you're not planning on bringing your laptop to the show, you're going to want to get all of that done beforehand. I find that to be a little bit frustrating because most EQ tweaking really needs to happen when you're on stage. You know, it's hard to know in advance what frequency might feed back or where you might need a little more boost and treble to adjust for a specific room. For some of you, the smaller footprint is a big seller with the VSound, and to be honest, it is for me as well. My biggest caveat with the VSound design that I mentioned in the review is the fact that even though it has two foot switches like the Tone Dexter, they're dedicated to selecting what impulse response you want and to bypassing the unit but not muting your sound. Both of these functions really shouldn't be assigned to a foot switch, as there's really no point in changing what impulse response you're using mid-song or bypassing the unit other than for a line check at the beginning of your rehearsal. A few other features unique to the Tone Dexter in this case is the effects loop, which is very helpful for a lot of us depending on what kind of a setup you're running, and a phase switch. So for me, and for 98% of you, from a feature set perspective, the Tone Dexter can really function as a standalone unit on the stage with or without a pedal board. Whereas honestly, I wouldn't feel comfortable performing with the VSound as a standalone unit live. I would need at least a volume pedal, a tuner, and maybe a few other gadgets as well, even if it was just a straight acoustic gig where I wasn't using any other effects. And now, of course, what you're all waiting to hear, which one sounds better? As you know, on the pickup test, we try to avoid subjective opinions. I mean, the whole point of our site is to let you hear for yourself and not just take the advice of some random person like me on the internet or someone trying to sell you something. This is also not a clear-cut issue because of how both of these units work. The Tone Dexter is designed to create custom-trained wave maps based off of your specific instrument in your pickup with whatever mic you're using. And depending on where you are in the room, where the mic placement is, what instrument you're playing, and what type of pickup system you have, you can get vastly different results that, if you have patience over time, you can tweak and make better and better and better. And quick plug, if you don't have a closet of world-class microphones that you can train with, we created a special library. We've created a special library of wave maps that you can download, and you can purchase that library at our sister site, stringirs.com. There's also going to be variability in performance and sound quality with the VSound, considering that even though the IRs are pre-recorded and come stock in the box and in the software, your pickup and your playing style and your instrument are obviously going to vary. For an in-depth review and comprehensive sound libraries for each of these units, you can visit us at thepickuptest.com. From a practical use standpoint, the VSound makes a lot of sense for players who are doing consistent gigs. Say you have the same residency with your Gypsy Jazz Trio, and you're playing, the same size clubs, and you just want to have, your settings and, the IR that you like, and everything just kind of pre-set up with your laptop, and just put something that's easy to use and simple on stage. In those types of situations, you could know in advance what sort of EQ settings you need and overall tweaks you need to your tone, and you can do that at home on your laptop and then just bring the little box, and you would generally be in good shape. But for players like me, who are doing vastly different gigs all the time, right? One night I might be in a small club playing with just a singer-songwriter, and then the next day I'll be in a much bigger venue with a totally different band, maybe with drums and keyboards and monitors blaring. I absolutely need the on-the-fly tweakability, especially in terms of the notch filter, the basic EQ settings, and also, really importantly, and I think this is kind of overlooked maybe, the blend control. There's a huge thing with these IRs that a lot of people don't think about initially, but it's the difference between a realistic sound and a usable sound. So we all know what a realistic sound is, and we know that no pickup can really match the sound of a microphone, although these boxes are definitely designed and I think will get you a hell of a lot closer. However, when we talk about a useful sound live, the truth is that a lot of the high-end frequencies, the nastiness that we don't like to hear in our sound, are the parts of the frequency that cut through the band, that cut through the mix, that's the part of your tone that people are actually going to hear. For you classical players, think about this in terms of playing closer to the bridge. A lot of our teachers will really emphasize this getting close to the bridge. And if you've ever sat front row to hear your favorite violin or cello solos play with an orchestra, you're going to hear a lot more of that high, hissy, kind of nastiness in the tone. But of course, the further back you go, that sound becomes more beautiful and more clear, and they're cutting through the orchestra, right? And so when we play live, a lot of pickups that aren't going to necessarily sound good, if you were just, listening to them soloed in a studio, right, are the best ones for giving us that cut and that punch and allowing us to actually be heard. Additionally, when we talk about a useful sound, it's important to note that a lot of our sounds are parts of the frequency spectrum that are being eaten up by drums and bass and piano if you play in those types of situations. And so there really is only a very limited part of the pickup sound that's actually going to cut through. Now, if you do mostly acoustic music like gypsy jazz, or you play in a string quartet that does covers or whatever, and you don't want to go with a microphone solution for some reason, then this doesn't apply as much. But when we talk about these IRs, we're getting more into the realm of realistic sound, and sometimes live, I've noticed, the wave map that I was using that sounded just like my cello completely did not work in my jazz trio, for example, where I have drums and keys. And so having a blend control, what do I mean by blend control? I mean the ability to blend in some of just that raw, nasty, nasally pickup sound, and add that to a little bit of IR, almost like you're blending a microphone and a pickup, is a huge advantage to these types of boxes. Because when we have to blend a microphone and a pickup, and you can see the video that we made about that below, I'll leave a link to that on the pickuptest.com, it creates all of these issues, right? You get you still get issues of bleed from the mic, and you still, now you have to deal with phasing and all of these other new things. So in other words, when you blend a mic and a pickup, it can be great because you get a little bit of that realism, a little bit of that useful sound, but it also gives you the weaknesses of both the mic and the pickup. Now, being able to blend with an IR box like this you keep the isolation of the pickup, right, and the control you have with just using one thing. So that's a huge advantage. And live, I found myself often dialing in or blending in a little bit more pickup sound. Now, with the tone Dexter, similarly to EQ, that is right there on the box, right? You can adjust the blend with your IR. And with the VSound, like EQ controls and other controls, you have to do it in software, which is really a shame. Well, that's it for now. And if you're watching this video on YouTube and you've gotten this far, you know that there isn't content like this anywhere else online. And that making videos like this takes a tremendous amount of effort and time. So we hope you'll consider joining our community at www.thepickuptest.com. At the very least, you'd be a complete jackass to not hit like and subscribe below, and leave a comment. We'll see you next time.